says it's illegal. He sent me a letter from his lawyer. God, I wasn't going to take it that far, but he sent me a letter from his lawyer saying, you can't do this because of blah, blah, blah. So I put vinyl on my fence on my side. So shut up the door. Anyways, the wall is illegal. It cuts right through farmland. And one quote, can you go next, please? One quote that I wanted to share from you was the Archbishop Pietro Sandi of Jerusalem said that the wall cuts in half. Right into monasteries, right into churches, right into convents and cemeteries. It cuts them right in half. They have no regard to where the wall is being built. As long as the wall gets built and it's a big, wall of Berlin separation between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Next slide. The Israeli settlements. I think in recent years we've heard the discussion about Israel pulling out of Gaza and really relieving their settlements. And the Palestinians actually have a different narrative. The Palestinians say, well, the only reason Israel got out of the Gaza Strip was so that they could basically make it into like a little prison. So you get your troops, you get everyone out of the Gaza Strip, all of your settlements, you kick them out. 10,000 people, to be precise, was the estimated figure of people kicked out of the Gaza Strip. That were illegal settlements, all right? The news media made it seem like they were yanking them out of their homes and they've lived there for thousands of years. They were illegal settlements in the Gaza Strip to begin with, on land that was not theirs. So the Palestinian narrative is, look, you got all of your troops out, all of your settlers out, you basically put this barricade around us, you put an embargo on the Gaza Strip, you control their land, air, and sea, anything that comes in and out of the Gaza Strip. So basically you put these people on their own, in their own land, and you said good luck, and then you come in and bomb the crap out of it, and say, well, at least we pulled out our settlements in 2000 whatever. So this is the Palestinian narrative. Again, agree or disagree, at least get a chance to hear the other side. Next slide. And by the way, the settlements aren't like this one apartment building. There's like massive shopping centers, right? It's the, your local Kmart shopping centers with the cleaner and the donut shop and all that jazz. Those are all part of the settlements. They're barricaded like crazy. They have, snipers all over the place ready to pick off anyone that gets close to them. Okay? And the settlers have full-on green light to shoot. They're all armed. They got M16s and AR-15s up the wall. They're all armed and ready to go for any possible, mouse that crawls their way. They're going to take it out. Next slide. These are the checkpoints. Who's been through a checkpoint over here in the States before? Been through one of those DUI checkpoints? Alright. Imagine like a DUI checkpoint, but like a beefed up DUI checkpoint with like everyone pissed off at you for coming through the checkpoint. Alright? Everyone's generally, and keep in mind, imagine like and the cop will tell you, you've probably done a checkpoint before. Just imagine like a beefed up version of that with guns everywhere. Every morning you go to school, you have to pass through the checkpoint. Get to right before you hit the school, there's another checkpoint. When you come back from school, you go through a checkpoint. When you're right about to get home, you go through a checkpoint. I can tell you there's been hundreds of deaths of women in labor at the checkpoint because the person didn't want to let the ambulance through to let the person go to the hospital because, there was allegations of a bomb being in the ambulance and blah, 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 and then therefore we're not going to let you go. Or the guy was just literally lazy. You can YouTube videos of people at checkpoint, you can see them for yourself if you like. Next slide. And they're all over the place, by the way. We're going to zip through this slide. Home demolitions, you can see it for yourself. Israeli home demolitions, I put 0 for a reason, because you can make the argument that Hamas or any other organization in Palestine has fired rockets into Israel, and maybe even in certain situations have demolished homes. I made the distinction because Israel actually contracts with Caterpillar and other organizations, other companies. They bring out bulldozers specifically with the intent of demolishing a home. And their argument a lot of times is like, oh, you don't have documentation that this is your home. And it's like some farmer that's had like 30 generations in Palestine, but he doesn't have documentation or a piece of paper that this is their land. Or sometimes they'll just make some bogus excuse and demolish his home. I mean, 18,000 homes demolished in Palestine. Refugee population, we talked about it. Israeli violence, we've talked about this in bits and pieces. 40,000 Palestinians injured since 2000. 40,000. Just the Gaza massacre, or the offensive, we'll talk about it in just a sec. Just that alone has really reshaped Gaza as we know it today. Next slide. We'll skip over this because it's not too relevant anymore. Next slide. So I wanted to give you guys some resources or some sources that you can refer to, and I did this on purpose. Okay, I'm a big fan of giving you both sides. Okay, give me both sides of the equation. I have a lot of debates with my Christian friends about religion. Okay, or my atheist friends, and I'll say give me both sides. If you're, if you're going to contest the Quran, for example's validity, I'm willing to hear your side. Give me both sides. So these are both sides. StandWithUs.org is a famous organization. They do a lot of Zionist work on a lot of campuses throughout the nation, for that matter. A lot done over here on this campus. Stand With Us is famous for their never mind, I shouldn't talk bad about organizations. IsReal101.com, I found that to be a decent resource on the Israeli narrative, I guess you could say. Keep in mind, I'm telling you this because I've personally done research, all right? I obviously believe both of these to be extremely biased, all right? Go ahead and do your research on your own. I don't want to bias your opinion, but I've given you a different narrative today. Palestinian narrative, you can visit AMPalestine.org. That's an organization called American Muslims for Palestine. A lot of resources, a lot of documentations, a lot of sources on the Palestinian plight. IfAmericans.org and TheOccupation.com. And I don't know why I call this neutral facts, don't ask me. And I put some of it because CIA won't fact point, whatever. YouTube, the advent of social media has really reshaped the way we understand Israel today because we get actual footage. I mean, when the Gaza thing was happening, we got actual footage of what was happening in Gaza on the spot. So have I been to Israel? Absolutely, I've been to Israel. I've been to Israel every single day I go to Israel. That's all online these days. So there's no, sometimes we make this argument that, you haven't been there. All right, but we all know Maui is beautiful. Maui is amazing. None of us, maybe a few of us have been there. But so nowadays, in this day and age, you jump online, jump on YouTube, and you're already in Israel, in the heart of the old city. I mean, I had a 3D tour today of the old city. So, I don't know. Anyway, Sarah fact book always serves as kind of like your basic facts and stuff. And the United Nations has a ton of information on it. Brothers and sisters, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I apologize if I took too long or if I offended anyone. I really, truly, honestly did this genuinely from my heart with true concern for this situation. You'll find a lot of people are genuinely vested in this situation. That there's been killing on all sides. That there's been killing from Hamas. There's been killing from the Israeli Defense Forces. Some say it's justified, some disagree. The point is, you have to do some research about your narrative and what you believe to be true. With that being said, thank you very much, and we'll open the floor for some questions and answers. Sorry? Oh, sure, yeah. Oh, is that what we're doing? Yeah. If you guys can come up to the mic if you have a question. Sorry about that. Do I support Hamas? It's kind of a loaded question. Well, yes, sir. A simple question. No, I'm not going to answer that question. I'll answer this question for you. Sure, I'm not going to answer that question. Why not? Because it's a loaded question, so I'll explain. So I'll explain. Okay, do you support democracy?
Do you support the idea?
Yeah, so I will not answer that question.
Why not? Why don't you answer that question? It's a very simple question.
Because it's loaded. So when you have a loaded question, it's hard to. So, in my opinion, I'm telling you.
Does anybody support Hamas here?
It's a question and answer, not a conversation.
So, okay.
Excuse me. After you ask a question, please take your seat. No, just for you, for everybody. After you ask a question, please take a seat so you can answer.
Your non-answer speaks words, speaks volumes.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Yes. Just hold it closer.
Okay, I noticed at the preamble for all of the events here today, the moderator, the young man up there, is making a very clear disclaimer that these programs in the MSU has absolutely no anti-Semitism in it. A complete disclaimer. I appreciate that. I really do. I think it's important. I think they made the same disclaimer last year. Yet, I'm going to quote you something that was said here on this campus at UCI by an MSU-sponsored speaker. Now, this was several years ago. How's that? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Like that? Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm nervous. Okay. 2001, 10 years ago, the MSU, these things were still going on. The MSU invited a speaker by the name of Mohammed Al-Asi, who was an imam from Washington area. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. Okay. And he made a statement during his speech, which is on YouTube, and I think I can do this verbatim. He said that there's a psychosis in the Jewish community which prevents it from living in peace and harmony with people of other faiths. You can take a Jew out of the ghetto, but you can't take the ghetto out of the Jew. Do you think that's anti-Semitic? I'll ask anybody in this office if you think it's anti-Semitic. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Just really quick, so I know you don't have a mic, but I'm going to do this anyway, I apologize. So I'm going to answer your question. Do I support Hamas, yes or no? That's a loaded question, like I said. So it's hard to answer loaded questions, so you have to break it down a bit. And the way I'll ask this is, do you support democracy? Most of us will say yes. So when Hamas democratically got elected in Gaza, would you support democracy? It's a loaded question. Yeah, I support democracy, but now everyone claims as Hamas is a terrorist organization, but a terrorist organization got democratically elected. So shoot, do I support democracy? Well, yeah, I might support democracy. So it's not a yes or no question, number one. Number two, I think I support Hamas in a lot of their social welfare programs that they've done in Palestine. They've done a lot of good. I think I know personally, and I've read a lot of facts, that they've killed a lot of Israelis unjustly. That part, I absolutely abhor. Any unjust killing of Israeli civilians, I absolutely abhor, and Islam does not allow. However, Hamas has also done a lot of freedom-fighting missions to that matter. And I am absolutely one who defends anyone's right, whether you be American, whether you be Jewish, Israeli, Palestinian, to defend your rights. If you feel that you've been attacked wrongfully and you defend your rights, I will never call you a terrorist. Like I've never called the Afghans that were invaded by the Russians in the 80s, I would never call them terrorists. I would absolutely call them freedom fighters. So do I support the Taliban or not? That's a loaded question. In the 80s, sure, they were fighting for their rights and for their freedom. I absolutely support what they were doing then. Do I support Hamas or not? That's a loaded question. And their social services program, sure. When they kill Israeli civilians unjustly, absolutely not. So that's my question.
What I'm asking, though, is that Hamas tried...
And I've been to Israel 13 times, and I've been to the West Bank, and I've been to Gaza. And I appreciate your passion. I really appreciate everyone's passion here. I'm here to tell you that I don't believe that there's an Israeli living in Israel today that doesn't want a two-state solution. There is not one Israeli that does not want to see the Palestinians as the homeland. But you're not telling all the facts, and you're skewing the facts. When you don't talk about the 1967 war, and how Israel was surrounded by enemies, and how they won that war against all odds. I appreciate your passion, but when you want to talk about your freedom, and that wall that was put up was not put up because they had nothing else to do that day. They had to put that wall up because Israelis were being killed in marketplaces and in malls all over Israel. I really hope that you talk the facts.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, she mentioned the 67 war. I mentioned I'll talk about this a bit. So, the 67 war is an interesting war. I'll do this very briefly because we don't have a lot of time. By the way, if you have more questions, you're more than welcome to come up. 67 war has been painted as this war where all these massive Arab armies that were so big and mighty and that had a ton of tanks and aircraft and missiles and ships and so on and so forth went and started attacking this small, puny Israel that really had no support from no one and everyone hated Israel. It's kind of an interesting view that I have because I'm a Muslim at my core and I'm not an Arab nationalist. So I want to say this very bluntly. The 67 war, in my opinion, was a failure of Muslims to identify with Islam and really go with their Arab nationalism, number one. Number two, to paint this idea that Israel was this lone warrior amongst the sea of Arab nations, Jordan never attacked. Jordan was probably the only might in the region that had the slightest possibility of getting to Israel. And they never attacked because of their agreement with King Abdullah. The interesting thing is, Israel had the backing of France, Great Britain, and the United States, the three world superpowers at that time. And the three largest economies at that time. I'm not ranking them necessarily, but in the top 5 largest economies at that time, largest militaries at that time. So to say that Israel was really this weak, puny little guy, scrawny little guy with some glasses going against Goliath, I mean, it's kind of an understatement, number one. Again, I go back to my original statement. I honestly believe that Arab nationalism is one of the main reasons why they were never able to advance. And because I think this should be a wake-up call. When you have every Arab country around this one country saying, hey, what the hell are you doing here? Why did you steal this land? We should at least beg the question and say, well, why are they all pissed off that Israel was here? Why are they pissed off that Israel was there? Because they hate Jews? Well, we went through some history that said the contrary of that. Well, we should probably ask, why were all of the Arab countries involved so deeply invested in this Palestine when it was to the Israeli narrative a swamp land? So to answer your question, I'm not sure if I did or not, but I had those couple comments. Any other questions? Yes?
There's a call on Facebook for a third intifada on May 15th, which I think is about the stupidest strategic move the Palestinians could make at this point in time. Just resorting to violence in general. It's dumb. And I wanted to get your thoughts on whether or not you thought that third intifada was a good idea or if it was a really stupid idea.
That's a good question. First of all, again, I'm not like a scholar or a historian or an expert on the issue, but I'll give you my opinion nonetheless. But I want to make that disclaimer that I'm really nobody in this situation, right? But I do have an opinion. I think the issue with the Palestinians is leadership. They really don't have a unified voice. So recently when you saw Fatah and Hamas making this, amazing, unified statement coming together and stuff like that, you're seeing the Palestinians really, they don't have one solid leader. And so anything goes. And so they're doing their best to try to do whatever they can to stop, from their perspective, Israeli occupation, Israeli oppression, and what they think is right. I think one interesting thing that we've seen from the Arabs is that really, truly, at their core, the population that's under rule always wants some sort of freedom or justice. I think the population, and that lady left, but I want to make a comment to her, the Palestinians at the end of the day are really truly seeking peace. Sometimes they mess up on the ways to get there, and sometimes they make good decisions, and that's all, speculation at the end of the day. In my opinion, would a third intifada be necessary? I think a third intifada would be interesting. I think if a third intifada were to happen, I think the use of violence might not be so prevalent. I think because of this Arab Spring that everyone keeps talking about, I think the idea of nonviolent reaction that has sprung through the Arab world to reject their leaders has been really empowering to a lot of people. But a third intifada happen, I have no idea what the implications are, what would happen, and who would even spearhead this third intifada. But I'm just as perplexed as you are. I'm sorry that I couldn't have a better answer to your question.
You were talking about that loss, how you support the humanitarian. How you support the humanitarian for Hamas.
I'm sorry, one more time.
You said you were talking about how you support the humanitarian efforts at Hamas.
Sure, like their social services that they've done, building roads and stuff.
Gentleman had a question earlier about the Hamas charter, which calls for the absolute destruction of Israel.
Yes.
And I would like to have that question answered as far as also that they would like to see it. Do you agree with that? Do you think that should be?
Thank you for that question. Thank you. I totally forgot to answer that. So the gentleman's question was about the Hamas charter. This comes up a lot with a lot of Zionists and a lot of people who support Israel. How could you justify being supportive of any type of organization that wants the complete destruction of all Jews in the state of Israel? I think number one, the majority of Hamas officials in the past 15 years have rejected that statement in their charter. Why they haven't gotten rid of it is beyond me. I think Khalid Mashhad, the recent Hamas leader, in his own words, you can find this on Fox News, I read it once. In his own words, he's rejected this. He basically sidelined this Hamas charter. So, I mean, to answer your question, the Hamas charter is basically irrelevant. It was a charter that was put together a long time ago, and I'm sure some parts of the charter are still there. But I think this gentleman is saying in 2006 they basically came up with a new charter, redid it. But regardless, I think the recent actions of Hamas just basically coming to a ceasefire with Israel in multiple occasions will tell you, hey, maybe they're actually seeking other opportunities other than just the total annihilation and destruction of Israel. And with that final statement, I'm sorry, we do have to end it.
This is clarify the question because recently the founder of Hamas organization, the Muslim Brotherhood, the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood organization out of Egypt, came out and said, if I have to get up in a wheelchair and kill every Jew I see, then that's what we must do.
If he said that, number one, then we disagree, but I don't know if he said that, but I'm not going to comment on something that I haven't personally verified myself. But thank you for your comments. I appreciate you coming to the program. Thank you for your question. You're a great cameraman.